Welcome to another episode, everyone. What is it like on your first day in prison or when you first arrive to prison? Well, you can be very nervous, anxious, anxiety sets in, fear, and a lot of violence. You must learn the rules to prison as soon as you hit the yard. If you do not, it could indeed cost you your very life. Check this out.
When you first come up in here in prison, you're dehumanized off top. They strip you away your number, and you have to assimilate yourself into a world that thrives on violence. That's the only universal language that people understood was violence. Mm-hmm. It was like the proving ground, the testing ground. You know, if you didn't do a violent act, you're gonna do a violent act because that's the only language people understood.
It was like an initiation kind of.
It was not even an initiation thing.
A lifestyle.
You're already initiated, you're in prison. It was a survival thing, it was a boundary thing, a respect thing, power struggles, you know, that people get sucked in. It's a vacuum that people get sucked into. A lot of people don't have any choices. You know, people who's never walked these yards, administration who's never walked the yards and has never really worked the yard and understand the dynamics, they don't understand the pressure that a lot of young people are up under when you come up in here.
Isn't that the truth? If you've never walked the yard, you don't understand the dynamics, but as the gentleman here alluded to, violence is the only language that most of these individuals there in prison speak. It's the only language that they speak. And particularly on these level 4 maximum security yards, it is extremely violent. And as he said, it is a breeding ground for violence, a breeding ground for death. And you must prove yourself seemingly time and time again. Although really, if you put down one decent demonstration, that is a prerequisite to respect. And people will bag up off of you. But just the mere fact that you have to defend yourself or fight for your grits from the beginning is daunting and not something that any of us want to be involved in unnecessarily. Stay free. Prison is not what you think it is.
Because, you know, if you and I could be playing around and I could say something to you and you could say something to me that I might not take offense to and you might not take offense to, but this guy right here is looking at it, he just read the whole situation wrong. So this is his way of coming in and either casting judgment on you or putting you in a position to where you have to react a certain way to uphold the standard that most people thought that you had to live by up in here.
And you weren't a violent guy before like that? Or were you, before you got into prison?
Before I came into prison, to be honest with you, I wasn't racial lines wasn't a problem for me because I have my family is so multicultural that race wasn't an issue for me. Worrying about what people thought about, it used to be an issue in terms of esteem when I was coming up, but that wasn't really the big issue. You come up in here and you quickly learn race. You quickly learn Mexicans over here, blacks over here, whites over here, Indians over here. This group is over here. This group is split. That group is split. You quickly learn that fast. It's invisible lines that you quickly learn.
So what was the hardest thing for you when you first got in here?
The line is not so invisible, actually. Yes, you absolutely learn about race as soon as you hit prison and what the boundaries are. Everyone is separate in there. Every race is separate. Every race has their own part of any day room and of any yard. You go to the yard, you will see that this race has these pull-up and dip bars, used to be the weights. And we have them over here. And we don't mix. We don't use their exercise equipment, and they do not use ours. In the day room, we have one side of the day room where we sit down at the tables and play cards and pinochle and dominoes and work out whatever it is that we're going to do there in the day room when we are allowed day room, and then the Mexicans and whites and what have you have their side of the day room. which is totally opposite from black people's side of the day room. So everything is very separate, segregated, cut off. Every black individual is in the cell with another black individual. Every Hispanic is in the cell with another Hispanic. Every white is in the cell with another white. Everything is segregated in there, and you're quickly going to learn the boundaries as soon as you hit the prison yard about race. What you are allowed to do and what is disallowed. And should you flout what is disallowed and take it upon yourself to comport yourself in a certain way anyway, then the violence that he speaks about will be brought upon your head.
The hardest thing for me, to be honest with you, was being in limbo, not knowing where my life was going, and having to deal with administration, yard politics, the lockdowns, being away from family. That was really hard. Seeing people lose their lives in the yard for menial reasons, minor reasons, being involved in riots that we didn't even know what it was about. You know,
Or at least
I was kind of tested. I'm in here strictly for loyalty.
Loyalty.
At least we believe that the riots and the deaths are for trivial reasons. But as he knows, and as many of us know, they're in prison, everything is heightened. Everything is exaggerated. Though it may seem small to the average person, whatever the slight may have been there in prison, it is going to be pronounced because respect is the number one thing. So if you disrespect someone in any sort of way, then they're going to take your face off. And it may seem like it is unworthy. The response, the reaction may seem disproportionate and may be disproportionate to the action. But that's how it's going to go.
Loyalty was big to me. We was raised in the hood like that, to be loyal.
And how do you feel about that now after being here for 31 years? Would you have done things differently?
Yes, I would have done a lot of things differently.
But what are some things you would have done differently?
The main thing I'd have did differently was I'd have shedded some of the people that I thought was friends. I'd have minimized the access that I gave people to me, you know, and
Why is that? What
because
did
when you
them
give
have?
a lot of people access to you, right, that don't share the same core values as you, you open yourself up to what they have going on in their lives. And then you're bounded sometimes, and when you're young like that, and you're bounded by a sense of loyalty, you basically tie yourself to the malfeasance that they tie themselves to. So,
Do you think that because you were giving your energy out to everybody, it led you to this crime that you were in?
And you know, and perhaps the listener, including myself, all of us should take heed. This is someone that is in prison, that has a life sentence in prison. In fact, I covered him before right here on this channel. This is Between the Lines. But now they just put out a clip of that interview that they had before, this clip right here. But he has a long time in prison, as he seems remorseful, articulate, and bright. He says that one of his biggest regrets is giving individuals access to him. People having access to him. And he believes that this led to his downfall because you then become a part of their dysfunction when they have access to you. This is why oftentimes you will find people alone.
this crime is a crime that occurred where I was unaware. I was unaware the crime was going to happen. I was unaware the crime actually occurred the way it occurred. I was unaware. I was totally unaware. It was one of those things where I tell you, hold this watch real fast. For example, hold this watch real quick. This is not my watch. This is this guy's watch. You hold this watch. You want to see the watch? Here, check this watch out. This guy asked for his watch back. He does whatever he does with his watch, whoever he gives his watch to. I'm off over here doing something, whatever I'm doing. And this group goes down here and do whatever they do. Next thing you know, I'm up in here.
Yeah.
That's that type of situation now.
And you said that you were really resentful, but also remorseful.
Absolutely, a person lost their lives that didn't have to lose their lives. And then when you, I'm probably one of the few people who took the time to actually study or do some research on who lost their lives in my case. And it's very sad. Like, a good person lost their life, and a good person lost their life under circumstances that just
it wasn't worth it.
It wasn't worth it.
And so, have you made peace with the actions that were done? Have you made peace with it inside?
Well, I didn't take the man's life. I'm not responsible for that. But I am responsible for coming to that street with that instrument that took his life. I'll say that.
Right.
Though I was unaware that that instrument would have been used to take his life, I'm responsible for that.
Right.
I take full responsibility for that. Even though I could make an excuse as to why that weapon left my car. Because it was like a lose-lose situation. You leave it in the car, somebody plays with it that's inside the car, the person that was in the car, he plays with it. While he's drunk, he hurts himself. Who's on the hook for it? You. You take it out, you pass it off to the person it belongs to. Something happens.
But isn't there like an intention behind that? Like, you're gonna bring it to what? To protect yourself, to have fear for others. Like, there's an intention behind. If I give you a pen, right, or like you're like, you should write with it. Like, so like, was your intention just to protect yourself, or just to have?
It wasn't my weapon. It didn't belong to me.
I see.
Somebody else's weapon. But at that time, this is what a lot of people failed to realize. In those days, those was the 90s. Quote unquote squares had weapons.
Right.
Everybody had weapons. It was a wild time. The streets were wild. This is why all those gang tasks came out.
Yeah.
Different injunctions came out because
the streets are still wild. I do remember him saying this before. You know, he did not take the person's life, but as he said, it was his weapon. He brought the weapon to the party, if you will. He had the weapon in the car, and he's explaining why he did not leave the weapon in the car. But as the interviewer has alluded to, you must have had the weapon for some reason. You didn't just, why did you have the weapon? Why were you driving around with the weapon? He said that it was not his. And so I suppose he was just returning the weapon to the owner. And when he gave the weapon to the owner used it to take someone's life. And he was on the hook for it as well, having brought the weapon and set everything in motion. I suppose they charged him with, he has life, so I suppose they charged him with the murder because they had do that as well. But they are letting a lot of individuals go home, a lot of lifers, particularly individuals who have done a lot of time in prison. So he has a chance to come home, and a chance to come home soon.
It was a wild time. Parties was getting turned out. That's what was going on at the time. Everybody wanted to be somebody. There was only two choices. You was either a ball player or you was a gangster. So you had to make the choice on what you gonna be out there in these streets. That's how it was. And
you chose being a gangster?
No, I chose to be a ball player and moonlighted as a gangster, I guess is what you'd say. So, but, you know, at that time, like I say, we juggled. Juggling, you can't be in the streets and you can't play ball at the same time. You can't go to school and hang on the block after school. You can't do it. Now,
Isn't that the truth? So in other words, he's saying that you cannot straddle the fence. You have to make a decision and stand on that. Either you are a thug and you are in the streets, which I advise against, or you're doing right. You're in school, you're playing ball, you're becoming a doctor or a lawyer, a scientist, an entrepreneur. Shout out to that brother. Shout out to Between the Lines. I hope to see him home soon and being an asset to the community, which I believe that he can be, in a lot of other brothers that are there locked down in prison who have indeed transformed themselves and changed their ways. They really have. They're different individuals now. They just needed the space and time to grow. And of course, prison helps to rehabilitate you. You self-rehabilitate in prison. The programs necessarily in there will not rehabilitate you. You have to self-rehabilitate. He seems rather reflective and someone who is intelligent, is remorseful. As he said, someone's life was taken and he did the research on it, on this individual that lost his life, and realized that this individual should not have lost his life. It's tough. And being there in prison is very tough. As he said, it's very violent. Violence is the only language that individuals know in there. They don't want to negotiate. They don't want to talk. They don't want to resolve things. They don't want to work things out. The politics are strong. And should you flout the politics, as I alluded to before, then you will just be in big trouble. No one is going to compromise with you there in prison. They have staunch rules. They all abide by them. And if you don't want to do that, then you're just going to be in big trouble. The only remedy is to stay out of there, not to go to begin with. Damn, trying to go to prison and navigate the situation. Just stay out, stay safe, and stay free. People.